Hello, everybody. It's Monday again, and we're starting the week. I did a conference last week. It was going to be an in-person conference in Omaha, Nebraska, and we ended up doing it virtually because of COVID, and it turned out to be a huge success. And I wanted to share one of the primary threads that ran through all of the questions that came through at the end of my breakout session, where I specifically spoke about chaos and how we need to be embracing the chaos that is work, and as we've experienced it this year in 2020. And the golden thread that ran through all of the participants and all of the questions that came in was related to coaching managers. So this was a leadership conference, predominantly VP and above leadership levels that are in attendance, and therefore very much responsible for teams of people below them. And the big thing was, this is chaotic. We understand it, we contextualize it. A lot of people got a lot of benefit out of the talk, but at the end of the day is, how do you take that and contextualize it for your leaders? How do you coach and manage your leaders through this new reality that we're facing? And I've got 3 takeaways that I shared last week that really resonated with a lot of the people as the Q&A unfolded and as we engaged in dialogue. And you guys would have heard this before. We've spoken about this in some of our 5-minute snippets as a company. We've also written blogs about this, but we use something internally called the thinking framework. And ultimately it is all of the research that's been done about science, the science of change management. And the thinking framework teaches us that there are 3 core things that need to be happening simultaneously in order to make change effective. And so I'm going to actually use that thinking framework as a way to position how senior level leaders inside organizations need to be thinking about mentoring and coaching more junior leaders or leaders below them that they are responsible for through this chaos and this new reality that we're embracing. So starting with the very first element of the thinking framework is the strategy, the purpose, and the leadership components of change. It's really important that you understand and coach your leaders to understand that this is not just a temporary state, but it's actually the new norm. And therefore, they need to understand that it's going to impact culture in a very real and big way. We've interestingly just been going through an exercise inside our company as we're growing. We're needing to tweak and change and mature our message and our voice. And one of the questions that was posed to us by Laura Bokat, who's working with us on this, is, what is your brand ideal? And Sengel actually has a very interesting exercise where he takes one through the different brand ideals. And so one of the main reasons of why it's really important to start at that strategic level with leaders is to have a golden thread that runs through every piece of the organization. So it doesn't matter if you're working in the HR department or in the finance department. Yes, it's relevant to people and it's relevant to numbers and debits and credits, but at the end of the day, there's an ideal that runs through that. So for example, we as an organization, our core brand ideal is to evoke exploration in people, evoke thinking in terms of getting people to really explore their careers, explore how they can work better, do better, and then naturally that going up to the rest of the organization, which is the customer that is paying us. And so understanding what your brand ideal is and then setting that as the foundation for your leaders and your managers. Moving then to the second part of the thinking framework, which is the process and the system piece. So you've established the strategy. You now want to ensure that the processes and the systems that you design around that are in place and humming away to achieve what you want to achieve. So in this case, it is this whole move from in-person work to remote work. How do you embrace that? How do you design your processes around that? And so the key thing there is actually teaching managers and leading managers to design with intention. Really critical to understand that it's not just a question of taking everything you did in the in-person environment and replicating it over Zoom. it's totally different. You're dealing with a new culture, you're dealing with a new way of doing business, and you need to see it as that. And so designing with intention to ensure that the processes and the systems inside the organization are, number one, being scrapped where they don't work, number two, being repurposed where they need to be tweaked because they're fully suited for an in-person environment, and then most importantly, bringing in a whole lot of new processes and systems that are really suited to the virtual environment. And then the last component of the thinking framework that ensures that you are making this change sustainable and long-lasting in the organization is enabling the actual individual manager or leader themselves. And one of the programs that we run inside our organization is Lencioni's The Advantage. And very critically, he goes through an exercise in which he answers 7 questions. And he highly recommends that every single organization understand these 7 questions across the organization. So every single person, whether it's the barista, whether it's the cleaning team, whether it's the finance team, the HR team, every single manager and leader inside the organization needs to know the answer to these 7 questions. And the 7 questions range from why do we exist all the way to how do we do what we do. Really critical, important questions, but really in a succinct format. We actually have it designed into a visual. We go over these 7 questions with our teams on a quarterly basis as well as a yearly basis, where they're updated and renewed according to the new vision and goals for the year. And it's something that we refresh people around. We bring it up in performance management sessions, we bring it up in coaching sessions, and it in essence forms the core of who we are. And then the last piece that I really recommend for coaching and mentoring of leaders is establishing a buddy system. So actively encouraging your leaders and your managers inside the organization to go and find people in organizations who have been running remote virtual cultures for quite a period of time already, and to really reach out to them and just bounce ideas off of them. There's a lot of wisdom out there, and there's a lot to be learned, and actually just having that backbone of somebody to brainstorm off of is really useful and really helpful. So wrapping that up, thinking framework, which is a distilled version of the science behind change that makes change sustainable. You have to have strategy and leadership in place. You need to have processes and systems, and you need to have individuals. And so when you look at the larger question of how do you enable and mentor junior leaders and managers through this change, you need to ensure that you're taking each one of those layers to bring them on this journey and to enable them through this change.